So that's 2,000. Please
So-
don't drop it.
Yeah. Keep the beer away from us.
Yeah.
Giant digital light.
So have you ever looked or thought of any of the video side of it, just being a pioneer as well, or you're just
Nah.
quite happy sticking on the...
I've got enough things to worry about
Yeah.
already when I'm playing.
Yeah.
Video stuff's never interested
And
me.
it's meaning there's got to be projectors
and
there.
essentially being like a local DJ, I couldn't show up to Ink Bar and go, oh yeah, I need 2 LCD
Yeah.
plasma screens.
Yeah.
You know, that's not, yeah.
It'd give Andy a good laugh, though.
Yeah, we'll give Andy a good
Yeah.
laugh, but I mean, you know, maybe if my DJing situation changes and I can request that stuff, I might look at it. But at the moment, there's no freaking point.
I think it is. I mean, I think it's possibly part of a challenge as well. It's like I say, it'd be ideal if every bar, club would install whatever the latest technology is, but there's so much of it coming through now that...
It's just so often not possible.
Big
Or
club.
feasible.
It's
Yeah,
interesting
well-
because you kind of went from for guys playing up records, you carried bags and bags of records around, and then there was this revolution. Oh, now we can carry a CD wallet around or a laptop. We don't have to carry the records. And now myself included, because I'm taking controllers out and stuff, you're starting to lug all this hardware around again.
Yeah, but it's still relatively small. Like my you know, when I have like my full requested setup, the gear's normally there.
Yeah.
And I just take a record bag that has a laptop. I mean, all the stuff I carry fits into a UDG sling bag, relatively small, and I just have my FX, which is in here.
Yep.
And that's still less than what I was ever carrying when I was playing record.
So you're also using effects when you're playing out live as well?
Yeah, on top of the inbuilt, like I said, toys. On top of the inbuilt tractor effects, which are, how many are there now? There's like 12 different effects.
Still, I've kind of
And
picked
there's like-
a few to get used to.
There's
and-
12 different effects inside Tractor. You can be running up to anything, or you can run up to 4 different units at once, and that's if you go complex. But if you go linked, you can do up to
3 on each one. 4 on
it's
each
more,
one
yeah,
now.
4 on each one. So,
Yeah.
so like overall 8 all effects or something that
Yeah.
you can have inside your laptop. So on top of that, I just run this little unit here. Pioneer again.
Yep.
EFX 1000. You've probably all seen clips of James Abellia on these things. Flipping awesome. I'm gonna nowhere claim to be anywhere near that, but sort of some very, very cool things. I mean, it was Joel's first gig on one of these again on the weekend, and after 2 beers, you couldn't get him off it. It's like, I mean, Joel made the comment after the gig. He was like, "Oh, that track was really, really boring, so I made it interesting by playing on this."
Yep.
It's essentially, you know, what it can do is like you can take something really, really boring and kind of make it pretty exciting. And that was just Joel drunkenly pressing and moving knobs. On the delays and stuff, you can select what frequency you're affecting. So I quite like just having the hi-hats and using the pitch on them and pitching the hi-hats up and pitching them down and using a little bit of scatter delay and stuff on them. And then it's just one of those units you just plug in at home and figure out what every knob does, and you go from there. And it's
pretty quick to figure out too.
Yeah.
and it's just like everything else that Pioneer do, straightforward, simple, easy as to set up, just input output on the back of your Pioneer mixer, or if you're really fancy and have a DJM 1000, just go digital link and it does all the levels and stuff for you.
Do you think there's also the potential for the DJs to just get lost in all the new technology?
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I think, I mean, I certainly, you can always tell if somebody's just got the machine, because suddenly it's just smashed over absolutely everything. And
I've always kind of been thinking of, you know, less is more. I mean, people are there to dance to the track, not there to hear you play on your new toy. You know, do it, but do it tastefully, I guess. No. You can have your moments to go nuts on it.
well, I think part of it as well is like you come across a track that is pretty simple or boring, or is more of a traditional kind of tool sort of thing, where that's where you can get in and you can really... And that was, I mean, Richie Horton's and your dub fires and stuff, the whole minimal sound it's very simple, is the idea of it, so you can throw a lot of it in.
Yeah, and it gives you the space to do those things, I guess, as well.
So was it just that natural progression to get into your production side of things?
Well, I kind of, it was pretty much that, and I did 3 years at Mains, which was obviously a big thing as well.
Yep.
And kind of had a couple of buddies that were writing music, and kind of once again went from sitting in the DJ booth to sitting in the studio asking questions.
Yep. So Mains, I'm just trying to think, what would you have started on What were main teaching? The Cubase or the Logic?
Oh, when I first started, I was using an Amiga.
Oh,
Using a program called Octamid. And I had to load up all of my samples off, discs about this big. Yeah, and you could only have 8 tracks going at once.
Yeah. Was that a mod tracker of some description?
Yeah. And you would and your keyboard, like your quirky keyboard, worked as your keyboard.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a mush.
You appreciated it when you could start adding more tracks.
Yeah, totally. When someone showed me Logic, I was like, hey, here we go. It's more like it.
So you're still using Logic now?
Fundamentally still using Logic, but I use Pro Tools for my recording. A lot of that is probably because I spent 5 years working in TV, editing audio in Pro Tools, so I'm pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like last week I recorded a vocal.
Okay.
And you do it, and I was recording a voiceover last night and did all that in Pro Tools just because I know it and I'm quick at it. Yeah. And then if I'm editing a loop, or like figuring out a loop or moving a loop around or stuff, I'll do that stuff in Ableton. Pretty much, I'll start bare at the studio. I'll load up a template that I've got there and listen to a few records and kind of decide what direction I want to go. If I'm going to record a vocal, I'll write a track and go, okay, this needs a vocal, and then go off and source one.
Have you got sort of a system of starting tracks in the studio? Do you always, like, some guys will start with the bass?
Drums. I just start with drums.
Yep.
Just program a few drums and a bass line and then kind of listen to a few records and just kind of roll from there. I definitely feel things out. Because I'm not musically minded, I can't sit and go, I kind of have to do things slowly and work it out and step right stuff. I'm not going to claim to be a musician in any way, shape or form.
A handy chart of chords and...
Yep. And I do most of my kind of trickery as such with more with effects, because that's kind of my background is from taking a simple sound and kind of turning it inside out. Because once again, when I worked in TV, I did sound design for TV shows, so you'd have to look at something on the TV screen and make a sound to fit what you saw on the screen. So that's kind of where my background is.
When you first started, it was all primarily software? You didn't come from a hardware background?
Hardware background.
It was a hardware, so previous to the Amiga still?
Oh no, the Amiga, I don't really call that producing, that was kind of just mucking around, but when I kind of seriously got into it, I was obviously at mains, so I had no shortage of gear.
Yep.
It's probably when my addiction kind of started. And
be a therapy session.
Yeah.
Tell us about the addiction.
Yeah. And then just, kind of went from there and started collecting a few keyboards and stuff, and
So you originally hardware sequences as well, or?
Yeah. Oh no.
That was
always been computers, mainly Logic, and just kind of. And when I first started, I was just writing with a good friend of mine, Craig, and he was the keyboard player. So we would just play loops into Pro Tools at the time.
Yep.
And go from there. And then I kind of started using more of the MIDI side of things because obviously I can't play keys, so I was forced to fill the gap as such.
Yep.